everyone, this is Sofia Osfour and welcome on this new episode of my masterclass on healing wounds with the Osfour self-coaching model. In today's video, I'm going to give you 3 tips on how to heal the rejection wound in a relationship using the Osfour self-coaching model. But in case you are new to my YouTube channel and you've got no clue what I'm talking about, the Osfour self-coaching model is both a process and a tool. As a process, it is designed to transform negative experiences into powerful life lessons and use those lessons as a springboard for you to learn, grow, and evolve. As a tool, it is designed to drastically increase the level of your self-awareness by teaching you tools and skills to self-coach yourself on the spot. Also, remember that this masterclass has a worksheet that you can download for free. You'll find a link below this video. In this PDF worksheet, you'll find all the basic on how to use the Osfour self-coaching model for yourself, by yourself. And finally, remember to like this video, share it, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more. Okay guys, so 3 tips on how to heal the rejection wound. So first of all, let's understand what is the rejection wound. Rejection wound is basically when you are dismissed or not accepted as a person by a specific person or a group of people. Now, of course, it's very different to be not accepted by, I don't know, one of your parents or your siblings or your family than it is by, a perfect stranger or a group of people at school or something. Usually those wounds appear very early on in life because when you're little, you build your sense of self based on how people react, how people behave around you and towards you. And so if you experience early rejection, as we all have, of course, because that's kind of a universal wound that we all experience, but it depends how early it was, who it was, then you could really say and claim that, I have a rejection wound. Now, the problem is that as a kid, when you're being rejected, you don't, you don't know how to process that rejection. So automatically you're going to internalize it and think, well, I'm being rejected because I'm bad. I'm rejected because I'm not good enough. I'm rejected because I'm inadequate. You would always think that there's something wrong with you. You're not going to think, well, this person is rejecting me because that's their opinion. You would never think that, even though that is the truth. So now there you are carrying a rejection wounds, and that rejection wounds is showing, probably in many areas, but for today, it's really specific. I'm focusing on relationship. So when you are attracting people, and when you have a wound of rejection, you're probably going to attract people who are going to reject you in a relationship. So how do you know that you have this rejection wound and that you attract people like this in your life? Well, the number one way to find out is simple, is that because there's pattern, right? You keep on attracting people who are rejecting you as a whole. So that means that they don't want to be in a relationship with you, or they are going to accept to be in a relationship with you only if, there are certain aspects of who you are that are going to be erased, So for instance, you going to have to, in order for you to be in a relationship with that person, you're going to have to erase your needs. You're going to have to erase your boundaries. You're going to have to erase your expectation. And by the way, one of the defense mechanisms of people who have a rejection wounds is that they're very adaptable people, like they're extremely flexible people. And you could really say that if you're not sure if you have a rejection wound, look at how far can you stand up for yourself, right? Usually people who have rejection wound are people who are so adaptable that they lose their own voice. They will never be able to stand up for what they believe. They will never be able to assert their opinion because they're too afraid to be rejected, right? So what they do is that they're going to blend in. They're going to go by what the leaders, for instance, if there's a leader in a group, they're going to blend in and just say whatever that person says or accept that. And so it's the same in a relationship, right? But ultimately, the price that they have to pay is that in order for them to be part of a group or in a relationship or that specific relationship, they have to cut up pieces of themselves. So ultimately what you found is that they're extremely flexible, but they lack authenticity. They are unable to assert what they want, what they need, what are their boundaries. And very often they are spending lots of energy to be whoever they think that that person wants them to be, right? And to, most importantly, please that person or that group in order to not be rejected. So if you are that person, you know, those are, you could say, the symptom of having and carrying a rejection wound. Like I said, though, we all have that rejection wound, but the one who really carries that will have this specific, you'd say, defense mechanism, right? Now, the question is, what do you do when you have a rejection wound? What is it that you can do to heal that? So the number one thing to understand is you have to recognize the wound. Because what happened is that, let's imagine that you just met someone and that person doesn't want to be with you, you know, that's it. So there you are straight away being rejected, and obviously the, how to say, what is trigger for someone who's rejected is to run after that person, is to try to be whoever they need or whoever they think they need for them to be able to be part of that relationship. So they will adapt to anything at all. So in that space, the number one tip that I would give you is to recognize that in that moment, it's not you who is actually reacting to that person because there's an attraction or there's a connection. Those are illusion. But it is your wound who is actually being triggered by that person, right? So the reason you want to go forward is not because that person is an amazing person, even though that's what you tell yourself, but it's simply because they're triggering that rejection, and in a way you want to fix it. So instead of fixing it, recognize it. So for you to recognize it, how are you going to do it? You're going to ask yourself 4 basic questions that the Osfour self-coaching model is offering you and teaching you. Those questions are very simple. First of all, in order for you to recognize what's happening, you're going to simply ask yourself, what's happening right now inside of me, right? And close your eyes and connect to what's happening to you emotionally. That's the number one. Second, you're going to ask yourself, okay, so what is it exactly that is hurtful about being rejected by this person? Okay, by doing so, you're going to really be able to connect to the cause of what is so painful to you. Third question that you're going to ask is, okay, so what needs to be changed, right? Obviously, in that situation, you'd be tempted to say, well, what needs to be changed is that this person stopped rejecting me. But obviously, you have no control over that. If someone has decided to reject you, that's their opinion, that's their choice. So what can you do for yourself? Well, in that aspect is that what you need to understand is that when you're being rejected early on in life, what you learn to do is to reject yourself, right? So let's imagine that, you know, when I was a kid, I was being rejected because I had curly hair. So now I'm straightening my hair, right? So for me, in that moment, will be to recognize that the reason this person is rejecting me, I go to the cause and identify and recognize that what they're rejecting, I reject to myself, right? So let's imagine that they're rejecting me because they don't like my curly hair. I'm just saying anything. Instead of rejecting that aspect of me, I'm actually learning to welcome it. So what can be changed? What can be changed is that I stop to reject myself. That's it. That is the change that needs to be made, right? Because remember that how people react to us is only a mirror effect of how we act towards us. So if someone rejects me, that means that I reject myself in some form and ways. And so what needs to be changed is not the fact that that person stops rejecting me, but it's the fact of me stopping rejecting myself. And finally, the last question is, okay, how am I going to do that? How am I going to stop to reject myself? Well, that's a difficult one because first of all, you have to find out, how am I rejecting myself, right? And then once you found out the answer to that question, you can look in ways and manner to stop rejecting yourself, you know, in the way that you do, right? So let's imagine that if I go back to the example of me, rejecting my curly hair. So maybe now, instead of straightening my hair, I'm gonna leave them naturally because this is who I am, and I gotta learn to accept myself. And by learning to embrace myself and accept myself, then other people are gonna do the same, and I'm not gonna experience that rejection anymore. That's the number one tip. Second tip is that when you are being rejected, no matter who you are, no matter how old you are, it is something that is painful. So the tip number 2 is to welcome the pain. Often when we have been rejected early on in life, what we often do is that we straight away go on autopilot and we try to do things, over-adapt, over-please. I'm going to cut this piece of me. I'm just going to, reject this part of me. I'm going to restrain this part of my personality so I can be accepted by this person or accepted by this group. Instead of trying to over-adapt, which is an automated answer, what you do is that you welcome the pain of not being accepted. If people rejected me because I had curly hair, so, okay, I'm not going to straighten my hair because this would have been a defense mechanism, but I'm just going to embrace the fact that people don't like my hair and it makes me sad. That's it. Okay, so this is the second tip. Often we are so, especially early on in life, we're so quick to go on autopilot, to move from the place where we are hurt on autopilot, trying to fix the problem, that we don't realize that the solution is simply to be able to sit in that pain and be sad about it, which doesn't mean dwell about it, but just sit in it and disagree. Why anyone should not accept the way you are, who you are, that's their problem. That doesn't belong to you. You can be sad about it, but then move on from it. That's it. And the fact of being able to be that support, that caregiver for yourself is very, very powerful. And if it happens once, twice, 3 times, 10 times a day, every time you just welcome the pain, welcome the emotions. And, journaling is very helpful in those moments because it allows you to, express everything that you have in your heart in those moments. Finally, the third tip is to be able to sit into the rejection and really found out, okay, because like I said to you at the beginning of the video, what we experience in life is just a mirror effect of what we think about ourselves. And especially, the people that we attract in our relationship are only a mirror effect of that. So what it actually means is that if there are aspects of myself that I reject, I'm going to meet people who are going to exactly reject that part of me that I reject myself, And I don't like to be rejected by it, but I still reject it. And I attract people who just point their fingers and just push it exactly what it hurts. And so the solution is to really able to sit in those things, in those pain, in those wounds, and ask yourself, okay, when I feel rejected, right, what do I think about myself? When I feel rejected, how do I feel inside? What are the emotions that I feel, right? When I feel rejected, right, how do I behave as a person, right? And you will find out that in those 3 questions, you'll find exactly the mirror effect that you're attracting in your life, right? Because if you are being rejected, what you don't realize is that you are acting as a person who is not worthy. And so that is exactly why you're being rejected. So the solution is to be able to sit in this truth, right? And instead of, unconsciously being in this position of someone who feels unworthy, to actually learn to be worthy, right? But based on the decision you're making, because often when you're being rejected, you're just on autopilot, right? And for you to be able to sit and ask yourself those 3 questions, right, is going to allow you to make a conscious decision of, you know what, I'm going to feel worthy. And so all of those 3 tips are really tips of self-awareness. That's it. Self-awareness is really a key here, because when you start to be able I really want to say to slow down the process of the wound that you're experiencing, up to the point where you could just stop just before you're going to start to do this or over adapt or try to cut pieces about you, and instead do the opposite of that. Sitting in the pain, embracing the pain, listening to the pain, and become someone who sue yourself, right? Support yourself. These are simple things that everyone can do. And if you do that every time you're experiencing, instead of trying to reach out to that person who's rejecting you, and instead reach out to yourself, I'm telling you, this stuff works. And if you practice this every single day, trust me, over time, there is something that's just gonna let go. Because the more you learn to accept yourself and love yourself just the way you are, the more the world is gonna love you and accept you just the way you are. You guys, I hope this video helped you. And until next week, all I'm gonna say to you is peace, love, and light. Bye-bye.